Yes, thank you so much for being here. And in a minute, I'm going to invite up our guests, but I wanted to set a little bit of context for the conversation we're going to be having tonight. You know, I went down and visited the border a few weeks ago with Cory, and afterwards I was speaking to a family member who just said, why are you doing that? Why do you care? Shouldn't we just help everyone that's coming across? And it really is a good question to ask. The Bible is very clear. We are called to care for immigrants and refugees. That is listed out many times. I want to read Deuteronomy 10:17 through 19. It says, "For the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, the awesome God who does not show partiality or take a bribe. He executes justice for the orphan and the widow and shows his love for the alien by giving them food and clothing. So show your love for the alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." And it just lays out there that, I could go over more and more scriptures where we are called to love those in need of help. And I bring that up, and I want to begin that because what we're talking about tonight does not remove that call from the life of Christians. We are called to do that. I do want to argue that a lot of what we are going to talk about tonight is going to makes it more difficult for us to do that effectively, and for multiple reasons. But I also want to talk about using the same standard, God's word. The government is given some direction. And in the New Testament, the government's role is to punish the evildoer and protect and praise the righteous. Well, there are laws that our government has, right? There are laws in place that we need to guard. We need to protect. There is a reason for many of these laws. Not all of them, because we live in California. But the ones called to protect, there's a reason for those. And the Bible also speaks very positively about strong borders. There's a reason for borders. In fact, when the Hebrews came out of Egypt, they're called to remember and care for the aliens because they once were aliens in a foreign land. But then it also talks about how they were to establish cities and build walls to protect the people, to protect God's people. And again, going to the same standard, you have been called, especially the men in this room, to protect your families. You have a call to lead, provide, and protect. And so all of those standards play a role into our conversation tonight. We need to hold all of these in regard. And I think about, there's a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that says, "The church must be reminded that it's not the master or the servant of the state, but rather the conscience of the state. It must be the guide and the critic of the state. If the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal, it will become an irrelevant social club without moral or spiritual authority." You know, the church is given a very important role, and so is the government. The government bears the sword. They're called to exact justice, to punish the evildoer, to protect the righteous. The church is supposed to be the voice, the light. We're supposed to proclaim the truth. And part of that is we get to hold people in political office accountable. We should be involved. That is why Foothills has meetings like this in the first place. I do want to challenge us tonight, though, to not negate the fact that there are people we are called to love, and we want to do it effectively. And so as we talk about people coming over, I didn't even mention the Bible has rules for foreigners who want to come into a new country. And so we're going to mention tonight about some Christians who are coming across the border through these illegal means. They shouldn't do that. I don't think they're honoring God's word by doing that. So we want to live by the same standard. We want the Bible to be our compass in all things. And so tonight, I do want to challenge you in a few things. One, do not fear. As we talk about the people that are coming over and the truth, you're going to find out a lot of them, we have no clue who they are or what their motives are. We are not called to operate out of fear. If you are a Christian, you should be secure in Christ, and I pray that you have great hope in the triumphant victory that Jesus Christ will bring to our earth, to this place one day. And so we want to be innocent as doves and shrewd as serpents. So we don't want to fear, but we also want to be prepared. We want to understand. We want to be informed, especially so that we can carry out the other tasks that God has given us. Men, call especially to you to lead, provide, and protect. And so I want to encourage you, don't fear, be shrewd, find out what's going on, and get involved. We're going to talk at the end about a couple calls to action. Many of those are going to require you to stay involved. You not to just turn off the TV, even though we would love to do it, or just ignore all of this. There are aspects of our lives that would be definitely better for that. But to stay involved, to vote, to get other people voting, and to be loudspeakers for the injustices that are being carried out in our day and age. I do want to say this. I have friends who have come across here legally, and because our system has many flaws, have really struggled to gain their citizenship because of those flaws. And I want there to be means by which people who need help can get help. I'm grateful to be a part of a church that we aim to help the widows, the orphans, the immigrants. We want to be a source of love and compassion. And we also want to be a place where we're in a community and we're promoting elected officials and encouraging people to run who are going to help Christian communities and families raise up children for generation and generation on God's word without threat or worry. And so we got to balance all of those things well. And I know that it's not always easy, but it's important. So that is the context for which we're going to have this conversation tonight. I hope that was helpful and not completely unnecessary. But without further ado, what we're here for, I'd like to invite up Mr. Cory Gautereaux. Will you come on up? Dude, taking your time, it's diva walk over here.
I don't get one of those Britney Spears things like Neil.
No, I'm sorry. He rocks it well, though. Yeah. Hey, Cory, I want to just begin by thanking you for being here. You have been thrust into the limelight in a lot of ways, and as we were talking about this event, you've been on Fox News, you've been Epic Times just did an interview with you. There's a lot that's been going on, and I want to say a lot of it, maybe all of it happened unintentionally. You're just going about your life, and there was something that was concerning that you were willing to step out and start recording and documenting. Can you real quick, before we get into really everything tonight, tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Cory? What do you do for work? What was your life like before all of this in a lot of ways?
I don't even remember at this point. There's too much stuff going on. So I'm Cory Gautereaux. I own a gun store right down the street over here. I have a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful daughters, 3 German Shepherds. I live out near the border. It's a lot of land, a lot of work. What else?
That could cover it for now.
I think that's it.
Yeah, a good dude, member here. How did you first start getting involved in everything going on out there and getting concerned?
So it was about a year ago, maybe 13, 14 months ago now, that I was, there was a Facebook post, and it said there was a bunch of Chinese people walking down the 8 freeway, 8 east-west, out near this Boulevard area. That sentence was very weird, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of Chinese people in Boulevard walking down the freeway. Didn't really make sense. So I got my truck, drove down there. There was a bunch of Chinese people walking down the freeway. So I go, well, that's really weird. Called some Border Patrol friends, and they're like, man, I have no idea what's going on either. And then that just led into all of this.
We should mention, as we're talking, just a slideshow is going to be playing on each screen of just some of the pictures. Some were taken, some you sent this morning, some were taken when I was down there a few weeks ago. And you've been really bringing different people down there to spread the word of what's happening. So I want to just paint a picture, even more so than these photos. Explain, you start going down to the border to see what's happening. Especially at the beginning, what are the things you're seeing? And now can you just describe what happens as you head that way?
So at the beginning, there were massive groups of people out there, a couple hundred people at a time, and something we're going to need to worry about very soon here are the fires. I started seeing fires out there, almost like deforestation, the stuff that was happening to the vegetation out there. They're pulling up manzanita, burning it, where if we did that, we would be in a lot of trouble. So I started noticing that. I started noticing these groups, and I'm looking at them, and things are just not adding up. They're coming here for asylum. I don't think I really knew that at the time, that they were working the system. But you could see like 75% males. And on all those cards that I have, you can see in the barn on one of the photos up there, it's about 75% male, and they're probably between the ages of 18 and 35, maybe 40. So things weren't adding up, and it got more and more confusing the more stuff that I saw. And then I ended up finding a cell phone. Once I found the cell phone, it was perfectly intact, and I got into it. Guess the password.
1, 2, 3, 4.
5, 6.
By the way, if that's your password,
I can get into your phone.
yeah.
So I got into this phone. It showed this guy's entire trip, Chinese guy, from Wuhan. Now, a couple years ago, you would say, hey, have you heard of Wuhan? No idea.
Yeah.
We all know where Wuhan is now.
Yeah.
So every day is just, there was a major breakthrough last night, which we'll get to, but every day is a, what? This doesn't, okay, Wuhan, well, I know Wuhan because COVID, and now this guy's coming from Wuhan to here. He got a picture of his passport on the phone, and then an address in San Gabriel. So what I come to find out, now I know, they have big burn barrels on the south side, and they'll just throw their passports and IDs in there, burn them, come across. He had the picture on his phone, so he didn't necessarily need it, and then they'll go up to LA to the consulate and get a new passport. But you can't get a new passport unless you know somebody.
Well, and already you're going to see as we talk tonight, there's going to be a lot of jumping around because it's just hard to talk about one thing without it just so easily leading to another thing and another thing.
And I'm ADD, so.
I do want to say this, even taking a step back, when we got out there, we just hopped in your car. There were a couple trucks that night. And you just drive down. And there you see a picture here of 100-ish people around a Border Patrol truck. You just drive down the road, and they're there. It's not like anyone's hiding or like you would think to some degree they're like, oh, we're not doing something right. We should, like, who is it? Should we hide ourselves until we know it's the right person? There really is none of that. They're just hanging out like they know what they need to do. They know where they need to be. And let's talk a little bit about that. Or maybe we'll take a step back even from there. How are they getting across the border? How does that work?
Let's take a step back even further for just a second. So the reason I know this area so well, because I grew up in TPUSA, so still backcountry, but not this far. And forgive me, God. I used to drink beer out here in high school.
No one here ever did that. Just no.
So I'm very familiar with this area. When we would go out there, you would be there you wouldn't even get down the road, and Border Patrol would have already contacted you. Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. So, like you said, you go out there now, they don't even show up sometimes because it's a system.
You're saying Border Patrol.
Border Patrol. I mean, you could be out there all day and nobody shows up. Some of the vans will show up to pick people up, but they don't really question you like they do or like they did previously. And I think that has to do with a few things, morale being one of the big ones. we can get into later. But what was your question?
It's hard. I want to talk to you about Border Patrol, but we won't yet. How are they getting across the border?
There's a picture up there somewhere in that group of pictures where, so a lot of people have this misconception that the border wall just goes forever. It doesn't. It stops in, I don't know, 12 and 14 places, something like that. You just walk around it. It's that simple.
You were telling me the main way they're getting across is just walking around it. And when we were down there, it's like huge, tall border wall and then nothing. But then you were telling me about the hand sawzalls that they also use sometimes. Can you explain that?
So they change their tactics a lot, which makes it difficult for the Border Patrol to catch them. So previously they would have some agents in that area, or just because the wall's not there doesn't mean that they aren't watching. There could be a camera, there could be other kinds of sensors. You've got airplanes, helicopters, all kinds of stuff. So the wall is helpful to slow people down, but it doesn't mean people aren't looking. So right there, they just walk across. In an area near Boulevard, they were cut. This is about a month ago. They were cutting the fence, so they'd use a grinder. So in the beams, there's 2 pieces of rebar and then concrete in each beam. So they have to go. They would cut about halfway through it, and then leave it so they couldn't see the cut, and then come back with the group, cut all the way through it, take a ratchet strap, hook it to one side, hook it to the fence, ratchet it over to the side, and then the whole group would go through.
How long does it take for someone, if you come and it's pre-cut, like you're talking about, how long does it take to get through the wall there?
Probably less than 2 minutes.
So overall, they're just coming across.
And so now, most recently, they went back to the ladder method. Some of these ladders are made out of rebar, some are made out of rope. They're just throwing them over and coming across.
And it's interesting, we're going to talk about a few different ways that safety is a problem out there. I have a source, we're going to say things like that quite a bit. But there's every day quite a few different ER visits because of border wall falls in San Diego. And so the ambulance comes or someone comes and takes them to the hospital because they're attempting to do this, and then they get hurt and they go to the hospital and they get help, and then they're released out on the street with resources. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's just the nature of this. But they get across, and reports are right now that on average 2,000 to 2,500 people are still coming daily across 4 main passes in San Diego County. What's the most that you've seen out there at any given time?
Probably close to 500 at one time. That was at the beginning.
When you pull up to a group and you're seeing 500 people out there, describe what you're driving up to. What are they wearing? What are they doing? How are they all grouped together? Can you just give us a picture of that?
It's kind of apocalyptic. There's a picture right there, literally just pulling up to that group, and they stay in their own groups. Usually, people who speak the same language stay together, but in that picture, they're moving towards the Border Patrol because they're about to get picked up, and then that next picture with the fires there. They kind of stick together in the groups that they came with, or people that speak similar languages or from the same areas. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things that you saw when you were out there too was those lines in the sand, in the dirt.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it?
Well, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's suitcase lines. And so they're coming across, not everybody, but we saw wearing clothes. In fact, I went out there at the day, so that picture with the Border Patrol truck, and that's similar to what I saw. But then as it got darker, that's replaced with fires. I want to talk about that in a minute. But you see people with varying degrees of either a suitcase or just a big jacket, cell phones. They have, generally, you can see there's some resources. I mean, they're not coming across with nothing.
But it looks like they may be going to spend the night at Viejas.
Yeah.
And not coming to claim asylum in another country thousands of miles away.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. So you get in there, there's different groups. They have, some of them have suitcases. At nighttime, they start these fires. We were down there and we saw 15 fires.
I was told it was CGI.
You were... I want to ask who, but I'm not sure that...
The internet.
The internet, yeah. If that was CGI, I don't know why my clothes smelled like smoke afterwards. It is interesting because they're just grabbing whatever they can find, and it was a cold night.
Yeah, it was very cold. It's still, 80, I think it was 87 yesterday, and it gets in the 50s at night, which would be perfect for me, but it's windy, so it's freezing.
Yeah. So we see these fires, and it's cold. I didn't bring a good enough jacket, so I was rocking Cory's the night I went out.
It fit perfectly.
Yeah, thank you. It's my huge biceps, yeah. Well, I took a couple photos with it and without it. I don't know. But it was a nice jacket. Kept me warm. Again, another source. We had a fire last night, and a fire down in Marin Valley that burned 154 acres the last report I saw. And that was just on our side. From what I understand, it burned at least 200 acres on the other side of the border as well. What I understand is that's the 7th fire those warming fires, that's the 7th one that has spread beyond that since the beginning of May, and at least the 10th this year. And a lot of people are really concerned about what's to come. It's just starting to dry up and heat up. And I have a source that's really concerned if a fire breaks out when it's dry that could easily spread to 500, 1,000 acres while we have 200, 300, 1,000 people out there.
So there's 100 different facets off of this question or statement. A couple of the big points here are like where Ben Good's one of my neighbors. So we live out there, and if they pull fire resources to go take care of this issue, they're pulling my and Ben's fire resources for our house for a problem that we created. So that's very frustrating. And I haven't received any very good answers on how to fix this problem other than give them blankets, stop giving them my tax dollars. You can't, if you feed the birds, they're going to keep coming. So they're still going to have fires, excuse me, if you give them blankets. And one of the answers was from CAL FIRE was that there's always an engine on standby. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that what a fire station is? So nobody has any good answers until it happens.
And I want to talk about when we were out there, because there's a concern of what we're seeing. And there's a concern because you live out there. And not only the fire danger, but there are literally thousands of people that are out not too far from your home. And I want to circle back to that. But there's also a concern because it is cold. And these people need something. A lot of them were not wearing clothes sufficient for how cold it was when I was out there.
Including you.
Including me. And you had warned me. Thanks, Mom. So there's this balance between we don't want people to die out there. And so understanding that they're out there in conditions that are not good. There are porta potties where we were. Thank you. You guys helped fund that. There's like little things like that. There's a dumpster. There's
a big light tower.
A giant light tower.
Water.
But it's not, especially as things get hotter, it's concerning. And balancing this understanding, especially as Christians, if we're going to help people, we got to help them not be in this position. And this isn't the right way for them to come across. Like, there's so many issues on all levels where you're so torn because I don't think this is what's right. And I also don't want people to die out there.
So this point is extremely important because I don't think most of us want these people we don't want them to die. And we don't want them to get hypothermia, not only because it takes more resources, we don't wish that upon anybody.
Yeah.
Now, we could say, a lot of these people are probably coming here and taking advantage of the system that we created. I don't think anybody in this room probably created it, but a lot of people don't know that I'm actually a respiratory therapist. So I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see these people come across and have any of these problems. But at the same time, we have to remember that nobody forced them to do this.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the system a little bit. And we're going to get into areas of what we've come to know, but I guess you could argue there are people who would strongly disagree with this. But what is the system? How are they all going through the same few areas of the border so consistently?
Can you pull the picture up of the maps, please? So in this cell phone that I found, I got into a Telegram chat, which is now 31 Telegram chats that I'm in. Chinese, Russian, the most recent one was Azerbaijan. I didn't even know how to say that until I found the chat. So in this chat, they have explicit instructions on how to get into the country. It's called like DIY USA, the name of the chat. Now, there's a couple other pictures in here of the maps as well. And it shows, so there's pictures like that just show a generic, picture, and then there'll be videos along with it, and then they will talk about it. Go through here, or because it's getting warmer. So they're going over by there's a winery in Campo, and in the chat they talk about going that way because they can tap into the water to get water, so they don't have to carry as much water. Mm-hmm. But why is Cory figuring this out and not the people that we pay to do this?
I want to talk a little bit more on the system before we quite get there. They have these cell phones, they have directions, and then we're also, you have found a significant amount of IDs and documents, but you've also found a significant amount of instructions. Can you explain some of the instructions that you found? And we do have a couple photos of those as well. There's one in Chinese.
So there's one in Chinese. That paper is written in countless languages and some stuff that your phone won't even pick up to translate. It doesn't know what it is. So that's the Chinese one, Mandarin one, and then it'll go over to the translated version, and it literally has coordinates on where to go through, and all of the coordinates on there are where there's the break in the fence. So this has been going on for many, many years. They've been creating this document. Now this document, we believe, it comes from one of the NGOs. And do you want to talk about the NGOs? You want to get into that yet?
Oh, you want me? I think this is one of the hardest parts about everything, is we're seeing what I think is, we would all agree, something that should not happen and that should be addressed and stopped. And you could argue for humanitarian reasons, for reasons for our citizens, for the U.S., for our nation. And then it's like, all right, why is it not being stopped? And to some degree, there are organizations that are profiting. They're just making a lot of money. In fact, there's a picture of a stack of money. We figured out that stack of money is likely more than $1 million there.
That stack of money in that picture, they had a video. They were actually printing it, and it looked like my barn. It was not my barn. That would be cool, but it wasn't. But in these Telegram, sorry, I'm getting off topic here. No, in these Telegram chats, it's everything. And when I say everything, I mean where to find a prostitute, where to find a kid. It's horrible, horrible. And we can talk about the kids later.
I want to. And so what we're seeing, and we're going to remain anonymous.
I'm anonymous?
No, not, I mean, no, you are definitely not. We're not going to, call out names, I think, tonight. But there's organizations that are on either side of the border that are doing really well because of what's happening. And there are quite a few people in power that are just not willing to talk about it or touch it. That's part of the call to action later, but it's very clear that this shouldn't be happening. It doesn't make sense. And we're talking for the health of the people coming over, for us, but then you mentioned a lot of these men coming across, they ditch their IDs. They give some other name to get a new ID once they get processed, but then they're out on our street and we don't know who they are. Now, you, when I was out there, said you're not worried where you're at. Can you explain that?
So where Ben and I live, it's kind of a pass-through area. They're coming in over here. We live right here. You guys are like way over here. And so they're getting picked up here, except for that Malaysian video where they're taking a lift because they had to wait too long. They didn't like that. So they're getting picked up here, and they're going right through where we live down to where you guys live. They're getting dropped off here, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen Bill Wells and his videos. He came out there with me. He's been doing a lot of great stuff. But they're getting dropped off in the city. They're getting dropped off down in San Diego. So it's not really, as of yet, an issue where we live because it's a pass-through area, and they have to be on their best behavior to claim asylum. So if they're causing problems out here, they're never going to get that asylum claim.
Yeah. And then they're leaving there and going, who knows where.
That phone that I found that had the San Gabriel address in it, I was at a California Canine Narcotics conference in LA. And I kind of surprised my wife and said, I'm going to go to this house while I'm up here, see what it is. And it was a stash house. There were cameras. So I pull in, and there was instructions, like no soliciting, but it was in Mandarin on the building. Nice townhouses. I had I bought a little pen camera. Walked down to the house. It had all the blinds were closed, and then on the garage, it had windows on the top and it had blinds inside the garage. There were about 20 pairs of shoes on the ground outside, Amazon boxes everywhere, and 4 different cameras and a motion detector. And I knocked on the door. I think I'm a pretty nice dude. They did not answer.
You could be kind of intimidating, a little bit.
I mean, I held the guy's phone with the passport picture and said, hey, is this guy here? And they didn't answer.
You gave me a stat that years ago they found that a certain percentage of kids that
30.
came across, 30% of kids that came across belonged to the family,
Did not
belong to the family that they were with.
So they were doing DNA testing on all children up until, I can't remember, 2020, I can't remember. The Biden administration stopped the program, basically. And they didn't renew the program. I don't want to say they stopped it. They didn't renew it. So when they were doing this testing, they would test the children that would come across. Let's say you're my kid, and you come across with me. They do a mouth swab, not the same one. They do a different one to you. And then it takes an hour or so. They test it. Okay, there's some kind of relationship here. And then, boom, go through. At that time, it was 30% were not related to the people they were coming across with.
So just assuming that hasn't changed. In fact, let's just give the benefit of the doubt for no reason other than statistics. Let's say that's gotten better, 50% better. That still means
we're at
one
about
out
half
of
a
every
million
10
kids right now. If we use those same numbers, we're at, well, that was a couple months ago when I calculated it. So we're probably over 500,000 kids that have come to this country with someone that they are not related to.
So they get here through these means, organized. Usually, by the way, multiple sources have come out that it costs about 10 grand to get across. That's the going number. They get to our side, they call 911, or they call to get picked up, or they call in an emergency, which I had another source just say inundates. They're getting a lot of 911 calls. And then as you see, these Border Patrol cars or these big white vans go out and they pick them up. Where do they go?
So when the vans pick them up out by me, they will go to either the Boulevard station or the Campo station. They'll get processed. Now that's an interesting term, and it doesn't mean what we think it means. They go through and they check their stuff, put it in the computer real quick, and then they get loaded back up on the buses now, and then brought down here, dropped off in the city of El Cajon, the Iris station. There's some other places in town. I'm sure you guys see these buses everywhere. I just see dollar signs every time they go by. Texas.
Yeah, when we were down there, at least 3 transports were there, and then it got dark and they stopped, and that's when it got cold, and about 200 people were still out there. And then the next morning, the transports come again. And Border Patrol agents are spread thin right now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they're spread massively thin. So this morning, a source told me that 300 people came through near my house this morning, a few miles away, and there were 7 agents for that whole area. So 300 people with 7 agents. Those aren't good odds.
And honestly, that's better than I've heard quite a few times.
So that goes back to the morale as well, and that's a huge issue that the Border Patrol is facing. When I was doing that Fox interview last week, and I politely requested that Border Patrol release their suicide numbers. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I've heard frustrating comments just from people who live out there, from Border Patrol agents, from firefighters, because the situation's bigger than any of them individually. And if they do speak up, they don't know what that would do or if it would have any effect. But they also know that this is their livelihood, and so we want them to speak up. But
we have some guys like the one that you met he's ready to help in any way he can.
Yeah.
So there's a big dichotomy, I guess, between the people that are trying to help and still they don't want to be fired because they have a family and mortgage and everything like that. But then there's some guys that have just been beat down so much at this point. I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, they threw a ladder over, and people were coming across. My one friend was trying to stop them, and the other agents were just standing there watching. And it didn't go very well afterwards. So they were yelling at each other, and they said, what's the point? They're going to come across down there or down there. Well, if we stop them here, there's no point. They're still going to come across.
Yeah. I want to pivot a little bit, because this has been going on. You first noticed the Chinese people walking on the 8 freeway 13 months ago?
Yeah, I think it was about that.
About how many trips have you taken to the border since then?
I don't know. Should we ask my wife?
I don't know if I want to.
It's probably a couple times a week.
Okay. And I'm going to get to resources in a minute, because you're using up half a tank of gas every single time.
Don't tell her that.
Okay, not. I mean, I really do want us to support and thank Cory, if we can, for what you're doing, because what you're documenting has been seen by people throughout the United States now. But I want to argue not enough.
I agree. It's starting to pick up, though.
Mm-hmm.
People are starting to. I've seen a shift in the last two months where I feel like people are interested to see what's going to happen in November. So some agencies that I had spoken with before, they didn't care. They didn't want to see the IDs. They wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And now it could be a couple things, right? It could be we're getting closer to the election, so they want to build some cases, and then they know that if the election goes a certain way, they may be able to use these cases. Or they see this stuff on the news and they're going, why does this guy have way more stuff than we do?
Yeah.
And it doesn't look good.
Yeah. I want to shout out in a positive way a couple of the people who have come out and expressed interest and documented. Can you share with some of the people, local people who have come out and been a support and helped get the word out?
Yeah, Bill Wells is a big one. It's interesting when people that are running or politicians in general will come out there or reach out to me and say, hey, I got to see this. Because it doesn't really make sense. I know, you, for example, did it make sense until you put eyes on it? I mean, now it makes less sense now. That's not the right terminology.
We pull up, and I've been to foreign country. I've been to third world countries. It reminded me of that. You're just driving out on this dirt road, and you don't know what you're going into. And it was interesting the night we were out there, especially we just kind of drove through during the day, and then at night we went back and parked the cars, and you start to walk through the group. And I definitely didn't tell my wife I was going to do that beforehand. It's intimidating. You're walking through this group, and you feel like I shouldn't be doing this. And you're absolutely right. In that area, they're on their best behavior. We're actually fairly safe. It didn't hurt that Cory was with me.
Or that you had my jacket.
Yeah, this is the jacket. But you're walking through these groups, and it is really intimidating. And you're talking to a lot of people, and they actually, to some degree, at first think we're there to transport them.
I've been asked countless times for me to, or they'll come up and say, can you arrest me? Not that good of English, but.
Yeah, which is interesting. So they're coming up, and we're having conversations, but it is intimidating to be out there and to see what's happening. Yeah.
I've taken a lot of veterans and active duty guys out there, and they've said the same thing, that it's like walking into a foreign country.
Yeah. So anyone else been out that you want to call out?
Yeah, Amy came out with me. She's been very helpful with getting this information out, and most recently the fire stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can. We've been working together for a while, so we've noticed that when we put stuff out, things seem to shift.
Yeah. In
a good way.
So I want to pivot, and what we're going to do is I want to spend a few minutes talking about what can we do, and then we should have some time for a little bit of Q&A, and I do. So if you do have a question, we can ask, but we want to make sure the questions stay short and we can get through as many as possible. But what can we do is a big question, and I know this is one that we've been just kind of bouncing back and forth for a long time on how do we stop what's happening. Do you want to start with an idea or two? How do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, so the difficult thing here is that it's such a big problem, and then you go back to how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So the first thing we have to do is get all the Democrats out of office.
I do want to say, like, we have to vote. Like I do want to argue, it's not enough to vote this upcoming election. We really need to make sure that our neighbors are voting, and there is a stigma that you can't vote a certain way or else you're dumb or else you're, there is a narrative out there. We got to push through all of that.
That's a massively frustrating point for me because, Amy, what were the numbers for your, was it 30% that people that's what it was? 30% of people, Republicans, came out to vote. 30%. So why am I doing this stuff?
And pushing against that is so important for a group like this. You guys, we're talking about a political issue in June. You're different. And it's important that you help others to know that these are causes that if we all got up and voted, would be taken care of. And part of that's voting people in, and part of that's voting people out.
And you're not going to want to be on the wrong side of this, which is the very bad side, because even though, like we talked about, a lot of these people are probably just taking advantage of this loophole that we have right now. There are some very bad things going on from some very big organizations. And once that comes to light, you're not going to want to be the board of supervisor guy that voted yes to keep funding this stuff.
So we need to vote. We need to make sure you're registered, make sure that your friends are registered, check in on them to vote, make sure that you have good candidates you're voting for. And of course, at a Turning Point Faith event, we're not going to endorse any specific candidate because I don't want to get Charlie Kirk mad. But we partner with him. But get to know candidates. He's not here right now, but Charlie. But I do want get to know candidates, and we're going to have different events here over the next couple months where we're introducing different candidates. There are a couple people here tonight. What up, Amy? That you can talk to and get to know. But it's important to really have people that you can trust. And if there's no one in your area that you can trust, then talk to us about running. Talk to us about getting involved in that way. Because I think Foothills is going to have somewhere between 10 and 15 candidates running this fall, and that's great. But we need other churches doing that. We need other churches getting involved, and there's still seats that are going to go uncontested, even with that.
So one of the other call to actions, I was thinking about this as I was driving down here today. I get discouraged a lot because this is a pretty big group. I didn't expect this. I thought it was going to be David and my wife. So this isn't discouraging at all. But sometimes I'm wondering why I'm doing this stuff, and is it getting seen, or do people care? But thank you. So one of the encouraging things is people like Bryce. I don't know where you went. We can't see you. He'll just say randomly, "Keep going." Sometimes that's all these people need. People like Amy running for us, just keep going. Keep doing it. We got you.
That's good. I do want to encourage a couple other calls to action. Call your elected officials. Now, I'm going to be real. Your elected official likely knows what's going on to some degree. Call them anyways. In fact, I want to... Go ahead.
Ask them why they haven't been out there with me.
Encourage them to go out there. Cory would give them a tour, and most of them, and call them again. If you don't see something where they're responding in some way, yes, this is likely bigger than any of them individually. But one of the reasons why this is gaining traction is because it's gaining traction, because so many people are starting to talk about it. But it's not enough. It needs to be more. And so it has been encouraging to see Turning Point and Epic Times and Fox start talking about this stuff. But we want it to be everywhere. So, everyone.
We need to not be afraid to talk about it. Mm-hmm. If people are calling you racist because of this problem, they don't have a good argument. There is no good argument for that picture on the screen right there. Those are all IDs and credit cards that people have discarded to come to this country, and we have no idea who they are. Mm-hmm. There's no good argument to not vet these people coming through here.
Yeah. Then I want to say two more things. One is it can't hurt to just be prepared to have means of defense at home, and more important, know how to use it effectively. I want to harken back to what I said at the beginning. We're not called to operate out of fear. I also want to be shrewd. I want to be prepared. That's what I need to be as a father. And so I want to encourage you, be prepared. And if you need training, get training. Well, if you need a firearm, I know a guy. And if you need training, there's some really good people that go here that do really good training. Just bug us. We will let you know who to go to that's good and trustworthy. And yeah, it costs some money, but I think there is a lot of strength that comes when the government knows how many guns have been sold each month here in California.
But to your point, just buying the firearm is, I'm happy to sell everybody a firearm. They want to come into the store. That's great. But just buying it is you need to become proficient with it. And that's not gonna happen between now and November, unfortunately. You can get good at it and learn it and be safe with it. And there's a couple people in here right now that do training and some people that would offer training. So yeah, just get with us and we can figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I do want to encourage you, if you are in a place where you can, it'd be great to support Cory and what he's doing. He has spent a lot of his personal money doing this, driving around, showing different people what's going on, buying equipment from filling up his truck with gas to the drones and the cameras and a lot of time. So we do have a link. I don't know that we have it. Jim, we don't have it available, do we? Here's what I'd like you to do. If you're in a place where you could just throw him $20 here tonight, $40, he might not take it. I will give it to him, or just sneak it, give it to him in a handshake. But if you want a link to support him, I will have that. I'd gladly share it with you because we want to. You've invested a lot personally into this. And I know that finances is just one aspect of that. When we went out there a few weeks ago, we were out there for hours, and you said you're doing that multiple times a week. That's a lot. That's taxing. And I definitely want to pray with you before we end tonight. And I also just want to say thank you. A lot of this stuff would not be out the way it is had you not made that sacrifice. And so thank you for that. All right. Do we have any questions? All right. We'll start right over here. I'm going to hold the mic because I have control issues. All right. You stand up. All right.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Cory, brother, for everything you're doing. And David, thank you as well. I've been so happy to see you guys doing the great work you're doing and to basically combine our efforts for the parental rights as well with this efforts of our border invasion. So I have two questions. Question one, when I was down there with you guys, veteran to veteran, I was expecting to have a different feeling than I did when I saw these people. They are military-age males. But it seemed to me that they were still in need and they were basically tricked. And have you looked into the Tucker Carlson thing on X of how that system works with the Darien Gap? Do you think they're tricked, and do you think that gets into the system of the UN? And then the second question is, which may not be appropriate for the church, but how are we, in your opinion, able to utilize these two major political levers, the parental rights and the border invasion, to basically flip as many districts in our favor politically and take back our San Diego County?
So let me answer the second one first. It's something that you and I have been talking about, and I really like your tactic on it, which is to get into all of the spaces. It's frustrating and it's massively uncomfortable to go to these spaces that you don't want to go to. Some of the school board meetings, some of the San Diego County gun owners things like that, where you don't want to be there. But these people need to realize that we're not the bad guys. And then if you show up and we know we're not the bad guys, that reflects almost immediately. So get into the spaces. That can help with the second question. First question I already kind of forgot. Oh, the Darien Gap. Yes. Sometimes you'll go out there to these groups and you'll get that really eerie feeling where you just went into a building or it's not right. And sometimes you go out there like when we did it and it's just a bunch of people that look confused where they're at. So it really depends on the group, the day, the time. But yes, a lot of them seem like they've been conned. And going through these chats that I'm in now, it's interesting to read. I tend to stay on the Chinese ones because I'm figuring out some of the terminology because it doesn't translate all that well. But what I'm reading now is there's, for example, today there was a guy that took a picture of himself in a park. Said, I can't find a job. I'm thinking about going back to China. Then all of the rest of the chat was, well, you can't go back. They're not going to let you back in. So, yes, some of them have been conned to come here. Can we actually play that video? That's not important. ¿Cómo supiste venir a América?
¿Cómo supe venir acá a América? O sea, ¿cómo supe que acá en América me iba a ir bien, o era más seguro, por ejemplo?
Sí.
It will be more security here. How I know?
Yeah.
In the news, for example, as you can see, for example, your President Joe Biden have a politics with the people that came from our
Like
country.
protection the people.
So the news in his country is telling people that Joe Biden offers them protection to come here. So yes, they've been conned.
Hey, so I recently had the pleasure of touring the Helix water plant on Lake Jennings, and it was very fascinating, but they put cybersecurity at the forefront. And I'm wondering if you have found anything to indicate like laptops or something for potential attacks for cybersecurity or critical infrastructure.
It's a very good question. I have not found anything specific, nothing specific like that. One thing that does concern me massively is the Incopah camp. There's a huge SDG&E substation right there. One Mylar blanket, it's gone. And they're right there. There's so many different agencies that could be doing something, including SDG&E, saying, hey, we're not going to walk this way. Go somewhere else. Why is everyone just letting it happen? That's a frustrating part.
Yeah, thank you very much for what you're doing. I've been down on the border quite a bit, and everything that you said is absolutely true and magnified. I mean, it's just unbelievable till you go there. Down at Humba Hot Springs, I was really surprised one day, actually, when I first discovered this, that New York has their New York National Guard sitting there. Now, what Hochul's doing sending out National Guard to our border down here, I have no idea, but it brings the question, where is our National Guard? Which brings the question of what you were talking about voting. I hear so many people say, well, I'm not going to vote, my vote doesn't really make a difference. And in the singularity, that's absolutely true. But if 1 million people do that, that's 1 million votes that didn't get cast. So that's really important to let your friends know. Don't think of it as me, think of it as us. And the one last thing is, I don't know if people know, but there is a recall for Governor Newsom. And this is one thing that we can do as individuals to help that come about. If you go to rescuecalifornia.org, you can download a petition, have your family and friends fill it out. They have all the instructions, send it back up, and let's get rid of the guy that's causing the problem.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
I'll put one in the gun store.
No. Right. And guys, I appreciate that. Let's keep it to short questions, please.
A comment, you haven't mentioned disease, and also I might throw out someone who's intentionally infected coming in. Numerous countries might do that. And also the fact that we're a sanctuary city, that's a big issue. We need to know how to bring that up.
So there's going to be some very big news that comes out soon about us being a sanctuary city and how bad this is for us, and a sanctuary state as well. It has to do with the child molestation, which we didn't even. There's so many facets to this problem that I could be here for the next 24 hours talking about this. And as a respiratory therapist, I'm incredibly concerned with TB, anything like that coming across. Amy posted something about they were, we're probably all on the same page or close to the same page here, but they were falsifying medical records to come across. There's within the chat, there's a step-by-step instructions on how to Photoshop vaccine records.
Cory, you mentioned that there's some like large organizations that are kind of doing some messed up stuff. Are you at liberty to share that?
That's David. David talked about that.
I'm just concerned about implicating.
They can come after me.
I think that, yeah, maybe there's just a lot of, there's some religious NGOs that are real concerning. There's definitely organizations tied to different hospitals locally. So I'd rather not use names. I think that'd probably be best right now. What is the term NGO? NGO, that's a good question.
Non-government organization or governmental organization, something like that.
Yeah, so I think some of it has been put out. Some of the names have been put out. I think Amy released a couple, maybe not. I don't know. But I would encourage you to follow Amy, follow Cory, and then follow Epic Times. They've been putting out some more stuff. Tucker, of course, has a lot of stuff going on.
Another easy thing to do is go to the San Diego Board of Supervisors meeting when they vote on this stuff, and it shows where the money goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. Thank you for your talk tonight. I get a little nervous when I talk, but I'm a talker.
I'm nervous right now, so.
So anyways, I learned a couple things. So mine are kind of like statements. It's okay, I get nervous. Did you?
Just gotta make it quick.
Okay, anyways, I learned this weekend that they actually have a Border Patrol cartel hookup. So what I've learned was, and it was on TV, I believe, that they have I don't know how far you've gone, but they have where there's a license plate that is specific for once a month, and they're paid off to the Border Patrol. And that license plate will be, they'll know it, but there'll be it'll be that one particular day, so they have to let it pass through. Do you know anything about that being connected? Probably not.
Well, I know the checkpoint's been closed for quite a while. That's a whole nother story we won't get into today. But there's so much corruption on both sides that you could basically tell me anything and I probably would agree with it at this point because I've seen a lot of it. Like the Mexican National Guard they're now at those points on the wall, 3 or 4 main points now, and they're stopping traffic coming across. But the Border Patrol has them on camera meeting with the cartel as they were leaving, and then they came through with a large group about 5 minutes later. So all of it is corrupt.
Hey, how you doing? Gambler here. I just wanted to go ahead and say thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. And I'm just curious if you've noticed MS-13 tattoos.
I haven't. I usually go when it's dark, so it's harder to notice things like that. You could. This was in Hakumba?
No, this is right down at 4 Points. 4 Points Sheridan. Right.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So I see this van pull up. A female there. There was a few migrants outside.
I think we gotta make it quick.
Sorry.
Thank you.
One's outside. But I saw the guy there, and I think they were there to go pick up someone. I cut out because he was paying way too much attention to me. And, I know the game.
So I haven't seen anything specifically that I can talk about specifically, but there's so many people that fit that criteria without even seeing the tattoos come across, and I have videos of probably tens of thousands of people now.
Thank you, Cory. I just have a quick question. Can you explain why they drop off their credit cards and all that ID and stuff?
Very good question. I think they do it so I can fill my truck up. So that question went around for a while, and we some people had gone down to the Darien Gap and then followed them up, some of the groups up, to see what they're doing. So I'll just comment on the Chinese specifically because I've been following that closely. So they'll take these IDs. The ones over there are different than this one. So they'll go to Mexico, get that ID. If you look at it, it's actually a Mexican ID with their Chinese information on it. So they'll get that ID, which I think we have a picture of it, don't we? It allows them to go through Mexico as a visitor. Yeah, right here. So it says visitor or visitante or residente permanente. So the girl on the top, these are two little kids that I found. Their IDs, not the kids. So the one on the top, she's 6 years old, and her reason for being here is she's a humanitarian. 6 years old. Humanitarian. So the adults will drop these, or they will tell their kids to drop these. So when they come to the U.S., they don't have a travel document. If you have a travel document, you could be deported. Now it gets even more confusing because we don't deport to China. So if we can prove, the government can prove that they came through other countries where they could have claimed asylum, then we can deport them to one of those other countries, if that country will take them. So this is a problem that's going to go on for decades for us to figure out how to deal with these people.
Yeah. Hi, Cory. My name is Don. I'm wondering how to get this information so we can go door to door with it, with some of the evidence, not just talking about it, where we can actually go up to our neighbors and say, hey, are you aware of these situations? So we can have that information in our hand so we can actually help them to see how to vote and so on. And spread the word.
So, yeah, that's a good idea. We could put it on a file. We could show it. I could show you that picture all day long. Now, this isn't meant to be a smart aleck response. So the best thing you could do is drive them out there. Because if they see it, you could show people this picture, these two little girls that are here most likely to be trafficked. But no, it doesn't mean anything to anybody, it's just a picture. When you see those little girls there, you can't deny it. So that's the best way to do it. I mean, even when David and I have been talking about it for a year, and then he came out and saw it, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're on Instagram, I do again want to highlight, you should follow Cory. He's posting things like this daily, and then you can screenshot what he's posting. That will get people. Can you share your Instagram, Cory? My phone's up there.
It's the Cory Goat, CORYGOAT. Because people can't pronounce my last name, so.
I mispronounced it when I called you up, and you told me. You coached me.
So yes, I can put these online. I'll figure out how to do it.
So my kids go to school at Las Cochas Creek, and they swear during sports leadership, which is like third period, that they see white vans, not every day, but a lot of days, filled with kids, multiple ethnicities. So they don't look like they would belong together, like a family, and they will go down Dunbar. And I know I talked to Shiloh, Ireland about this. Do you think that the kids are seeing white vans loaded with kids driving down the street toward a residential area in the middle of nowhere? Because we've driven down there and there's just houses. Do you think that there is any possibility that there's kids loaded up in a house by our school and nobody would really know, like even neighbors? Like, because I would think that the neighbors down there would be like, hey, what's going on here?
Yes, I think there's 100% possibility that that's happening.
We're just going to take a couple more, and then we got to wrap up. Sorry, control issue.
How many buses do you think are going up and down the 8 every day?
I have a question for Ben Good. I don't know. How many do you think? 10? Yeah. Yeah, they're huge. They have Texas license plates, 2 big tires in the back, cages. They didn't have the cages at the beginning. Now they do. But like Ben said, it's probably between 10 or 20 a day. What do they fit? 62 people or 52? I can't remember. 52. Yeah. So I mean that matches up with the numbers. Yeah.
Cory, we have a quick yes or no back here. Are we the #1 site for crossings in America right now?
It's switched. So in Texas and sorry, you said yes or no? Yes.
Yeah.
So I've called, so I live within the region of San Diego County, and so I've called Todd Gloria, and it's about trafficking that's in my area. And I called him, I called another official, and it's almost like they don't care. I called the police department. What would you recommend in that case when it feels like our officials aren't doing anything for serious issues? And this is within like school districts too, of things that I've seen, left multiple messages and nothing.
It's frustrating. So I've been dealing with it for over a year now, trying to get people to pay attention. So I know how frustrating it can be. I would get with Cherie with the RAD movement. She can help you. And Bryce, is Bryce still here? Bryce, they're right next to each other, make it easy for you. Talk to those two, and they can help point you in the right direction, and I can as well. But we're creating some networks here.
Yeah, I would like you to call out the politicians that have come down to see and ask questions. You already mentioned Bill Wells. Is he the only politician that's come down there?
No, Amy was the first one.
Amy, sorry, you said Amy. I apologize. Thank you.
Don't forget about Amy.
Who else? Amy, obviously. Who else? And who do we need to call and give him a hard time? Has Darrell Issa been down there? Has he called you? Who do we got that's come down and asked questions? I think we're all pissed off. So let's call them out by name and let's go call their office. And I want to call them.
So Jim was going to come with me when Bill came out, but in my opinion, Jim gets a pass because he's been heading this up for a while now. Desmond, sorry. So he knows what's going on. We do talk, and and he votes no. Thank you. Who else has come out there as a politician? Tulsi Gabbard. I took Tulsi Gabbard out there. Her video should be coming out this month. It's a documentary. We went out for 2 days. It was like 12-hour days, both days, and it's going to be extremely eye-opening. Her husband is a filmmaker, so it's going to be a very good film as well. Who else? James O'Keefe is coming out with a video. So Joel Anderson has not, and it is his district. And I'll leave that at that. Darrell Issa needs to be replaced. I mean, he has not been out either. Gavin Newsom I called out, and then he showed up a couple weeks later in 2 Black Hawk helicopters. I happen to be a Black Hawk crew chief in the Army, so it was kind of cool. But when he came out, it was interesting because the entire camp was spotless. Not one person there. Not one piece of trash, nothing. I did a FOIA request to DHS because I want to know who cleaned up the trash. Do they use our tax dollars to get contractors out there to clean up the trash? So then when he went out there, they didn't have one thing, nothing. And then he said border crossings in the Hukumba area were down was 90%, which was not a lie because they stopped it while he was coming down there. They just went that way.
So Jenny was telling me, findyourrepresentative.com. It's something like that. Google, find my representative. It will list out all your representatives from where you live, your address, and call them all. Call them all. And if they respond and say they've been down there, applaud them and ask them to keep promoting it, telling people about it, talking about it. And if they haven't, give them a hard time. Yeah.
Do you have time for one quick last story?
Yeah.
So this is not a good one, but I need to tell it. I was down there with some friends. This was when James O'Keefe was here, and I was coming home from the gun store. They were already out there near Incopa. A group just came across, and they were Portuguese. So nobody spoke, what's the language again? I forgot. Nobody spoke whatever the language is. Not Spanish. Is it Portuguese? No, they were.
They were Brazilian, so
Brazilian,
they spoke
that's what it was.
Portuguese. Yeah, I got you.
They weren't Chinese. So they were Brazilian, they spoke Portuguese, so they were trying to talk to them. They showed up in a panic, this group, and they were basically saying, and it took them a while to figure it out, you have to find the kids. Find the kids. And I'm pretty sure James got it on video. We'll see. So as I'm driving up the hill, they're calling me to relay this information to me so I can get it over to the Border Patrol. I said, well, what's going on? Tell me, I need more of the story than this. As they're telling me this, a white truck pulls up. Kids start getting thrown into the truck, and it's about a mile away. It's a border road, so it's just wide open. You could see it. So they see the kids get thrown in the truck. Truck takes off. Okay, now I have white truck, so they tell me white truck. So I call Border Patrol, tell them what was just relayed to me. This was on the east side of Acumba, so they came out by that SDG&E substation that I was talking about earlier, and they went through Acumba. They never went on to the 8, or they would have been seen by the cameras. So those kids went to some house in Acumba, and from there, nobody has any idea. Every day.
I agree with that. If you didn't hear her, she said that's the main thing we can talk about. And again, some people might be turned off by you just saying that you're upset with this. If you call it an invasion, which I think you have a good argument to do, but if you talk about the children, and you talk about the sex trafficking that is likely happening, it would be a statistic anomaly for it not to be, unfortunately, at this point. People are going to listen. And that's what we need. The injustice and the trouble that all of this is causing is so on so many different layers that every single person should be concerned. And it's just a matter of making sure they're informed, they know what's going on, and then giving them the call to action to call elected officials, to tell other people, and to vote, and just to be prepared. We're going to wrap it up. It is 8 o'clock. Cory's going to be around for a little bit, although I'm not committing you to too late.
Yeah, let's lower.
Again, we have some documents over there. If you can support Cory, that's the way to do it right there. And you guys, thank you so much for coming out. Hope you come out in the future. Sign up if you want to stay informed of different events we have here. Thank you, Cory. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.